Episode number 125 of Making a Case. Is consumerism the real enemy? Let's get it. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Making a Case. Well, episode 125. Of course, I'm your host, none other than Dr. Jacob Isom. We're talking about consumerism. Is it the real enemy? All right. Now, we've done a video before on capitalism. I'm not sure if we've done one on consumerism. Yes, they are very close cousins. All right. Consumerism is a direct response to capitalism. All right. But before we go any further, we gotta go over our two-channel norms, of course. One, we'll take points in our people, and then two, we don't do all that cussing derogatory stuff, right? We like to keep it professional over here. But to be honest with you, I literally was just having this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday. And I like to bring this up a lot because a lot of times we, we fiend for, or maybe fiend is not the right word, but we want so many different things and we confuse our needs and our wants pretty often. We spend every day, right? There's not a day go by that, we ain't spending on gas, food, electronics, technology, etc. Right? The list just go through the roof. So we're always spending, which is the reason why we're always working to keep up with those habits. Um, Propaganda and advertising and marketing have done a good job of thinking that we always should be in need of something, right? I always go back to the infamous clip in Baby Boy where Jody is breaking down pretty much transactions, right? Um, and it's such a eye-opening clip. Definitely go back and rewatch Baby Boy for those that haven't seen it or need some kind of brushing up on. It's a wonderful scene in there. But when it comes to consumerism, right, we so conditioned that we don't even think about it through the lens of, you know what? Yes, I am pretty much, I hate to say it, I'm pretty much a slave to this system, right? We understand that everything runs based off transactions. So, this is the topic that we're going to discuss today. Hopefully, you gain a different perspective, a better understanding of why consumerism can be a detriment. Because I definitely don't see it as a plus unless we're talking about consuming knowledge, right? Unless we're talking about consuming information so that we can build and we can strengthen our culture and our family. So I'm talking about consumerism in the lens and the vein of, well, we're always spending on materials and things that is not enriching us. All right. So that's the conversation, the piece for today. I have a fabulous video clip for you that does a great job of breaking down why consumerism is likened to slavery. Okay. And I know I literally or really hate, always using slavery in terms of different things. I know we hear it all the time, but in this case, you're going to understand why in the video breakdown. All right. So without further ado, let's get into the video. All right. Let's go.
You don't know you're a slave and you like this, you choose this, then you will never rebel. So the consumerism is the perfection of slavery. They're transitioning from the worker to a new organizing unit called the consumer. What's amazing about Marx is today we say he's wrong, right? Communism happened in the Soviet Union and happened in China, but it happened in Europe and in the United States, where Marx said it would happen first because Germany was more industrialized than Russia or China. If you think about it deeply, Marx is right. After World War II, every industrial society, to some extent, adopted the ideals of communism. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, we call this socialism, not communism, but basically it adhered to the thinking of Marx. which is to make the worker the heart and center of your society. And why did they do that after World War II? Because workers create.
And let me say this. A lot of people don't understand the difference between capitalism, socialism, and communism. More so, socialism and communism, right? Socialism is more about the people kind of paying taxes into a system that's going to be divided up and spread out as evenly as possible to make sure we take care of the well-beings of our citizens, right? Communism is a little bit different, where you have it more government run, right, and that the government is looking out for the well-being, and you have a regime that's in power that feel like they know what the people need versus what they want. So that's kind of like the major difference. But no system, just like we live in capitalism today, but we got a little bit of socialism, we got a little bit of capitalism. It's no different than any other system. There is no pure communistic or pure capitalist system. It just doesn't exist. All right. Noam Chomsky, I believe, talks about it as well. Let's get back into it.
Value. Money doesn't create any value. Money just creates more money. It's speculative. But the workers create value. They're productive. And therefore, you have to treat your workers properly. So in America and in Europe, workers became the heart and center of your society. The workers, through unions, could demand political reforms. And so our society was geared towards making the lives of the middle class, the working class, better, okay? That's why you had excellent healthcare, great public schools, cheap universities. So the 50s and 60s and 70s was basically the peak of society for the working class. But in the 80s, we started to change this. Why? Why would we want to change the system? It's a great system, right? Marx is right. Having the worker as the central organizing unit of society makes a lot more sense than having money as the heart and center, okay? But starting in the 80s, we start to go back to money. Why? So what happened in the 80s is something called the revolt of the elite. In other words, the problem with having a society based on the worker is it becomes too egalitarian, too equal. But if you're like the elite, you don't want equality, you want difference. You want to have power and money.
And the crazy thing about it is, to me, nowadays, it's just not the elite, right? Everybody, even if you're not elite with the resources and the money, a lot of people are elite in thinking. And let me tell you what I mean by this, right? So this is the reason why consumerism is such a dead end and such an enemy, because even the poor people, they go by knockoff Louis Vuitton and knockoff Burberry, right? So they're elite in their thinking. They feel like they deserve a certain type of lifestyle, right? But they don't have the information and the resources to follow it or back it up, right? So you're creating this situation why now we're talking about how we got the hollowing out of the middle class, right? And pretty much we just gonna have two classes, the rich and the poor, where the poor understands where they at, but they still want to get up there with the rich, right? And then the rich are doing everything in their power to make sure that the poor stay where they are because they're making money off of consumerism, right? The reason why NBA player, actors, athletes, think about it. They make most of their money off of the working class and the poor people who are spending money to come see them. Think about this system. Let's get back into
Money in your hands. The revolt of the elite happened in the 80s, and this is what we call in the United States the Reagan Revolution, the beginning of neoliberalism, free market capitalism. And in Britain, it was called Thatcherism, Margaret Thatcher, the Thatcher Revolution. Now you need to transition away from the worker to something else, another ideology that allows the elite to amass power. Just to show you how radical this revolution was, okay? In the 1970s, if you were a CEO, the head of a company, you were making on average 1 million US dollars a year. And that $1 million was more than 20 times the worker. Today, the average CEO in the United States makes $20 million a year. And that is 200 to 300 times more than the average worker in the company. In the 80s, inequality started to explode. And so they're transitioning from the worker to a new organizing unit called the consumer. They needed to destroy the working class, the middle class. And the way they did it was by introducing a new concept called the consumer. So in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the government promised you a good job. If you were a member of a society, if you were a citizen, I promise you a good job that you would have for the rest of your life. So in the 80s, the government said, I promise you that you have low prices and a wide selection of goods. But what this meant was a revolution in society, a revolution in politics. An example, the worker has to have political consciousness in order to protect his or her rights, in order to organize for favorable political reforms, okay? That's what the worker must do, okay? I decide to give everyone 1 million US dollars. What happens now? The first thing you do is buy something, right? What do you want to buy? You buy a house, right? That's a great purchase. Then what do? He wants to take pictures and post on social media. You see this, what do now? You also want to buy a house, a bigger house, right? And then what do? You also post pictures, okay? Then how do other people feel? Very quickly, what happens in the school? Yeah, you all spend your money, you all go into debt because you're in competition with each other to buy the biggest thing. And $1 million is a lot of money, but it's not enough to buy everything, right? So you go into debt, you borrow more money to buy more things. And then what happens? How do you guys feel about each other? Do you guys have lunch together? Do you guys have dinner together? Do you guys like to share homework together? You guys hate each other, right? At the end of the day, what will happen is you all go into debt and you all hate each other. So that's consumerism. Consumerism creates a competition in society for prestige to see.
And that's a great way to stop that video right there, to end off that point right there. And that's essentially what I was talking about. It is this competition. It's this drive to be either equal to or greater than someone else. And we understand that we don't want equality. We don't want to be equal to anybody. And if we're being honest with ourselves, this is 99.9% of people, right? We want to feel like we're on par, or really that we're better than somebody else. We want to feel like we have value. We want to feel like that we bring something to the table. We're worth something, right? Because with that worth comes along, I deserve this. Okay. If I'm worth this, then I deserve that. Okay. Cause and effect. That's what it is. So consumerism continues to just drive certain behavior. And that certain behavior is okay, I want this because it can bring me that. Okay. Men buy nice houses and jewelry because they bring women, right? Women get makeup because they bring the attention of men. Women wear scantily clad clothing because they bring the attention of men. Cause and effect, right? And consumerism drives all of that, right? The makeup industry, multi-million dollar industry, butt lifts and lip injections, multi-million dollar industry, right? Porn. We could just keep going, right? Consumerism. It drives us. But the only thing about that is we got to continue to work in order to spend. So why is that video called Consumerism is Slavery? Because it just repeats the cycle over and over. All right. We're going to go ahead and end the video right there, man. I don't want to be too long-winded on it. Hopefully you appreciate the perspective and gain an understanding about consumerism and capitalism and socialism and communism as well. All right. But you already know, man. Thank you for watching your boy. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel, man. We will appreciate that. And as always, I'm you are me. Love always, love eternal. Remember, worst thing you can do is lie to yourself. We out. Deuces. One love.